odds market.
I'm DaveBets.
Obsession. This is Theo Goodman.
All the tools to be among that few that win.
Because that winning calculated.
I'm Stuart from Tipster HQ.
My name's Jay Baglia.
Hey guys, Gabriel.
Some call it gambling.
Here to bring you the best political betting tips.
It's the booming industry of professional gaming.
Odds Market, Sports Bet Daily.
Bankroll management.
Over at Odds Market.
We are odds market. Watch us.
Now we move on to obviously UFC had a week's break. I was just getting into it. They had a break, but they are back on again, and we've got a big headline match to talk about. So I'm going to introduce DaveBets, DaveBets _ if you want to give him a follow there on Twitter. How is it going? We had a little break. I was getting all into it. You got me watching it. I was sat there with my daughter cheering along. It was great, and there was a week break.
It's been a horrible week.
I know.
Absolutely awful.
Didn't know what to do with my Saturday, to be honest. My Saturday afternoon.
All I've had is a couple football games to watch, but yeah, my Saturday night was very lackluster with no fights on.
Yeah, I had to be social and talk to people, unfortunately. I know I was all watching, I was all ready for the fight and no fight. But there is a fight now, and we've got a big headliner, don't we? Holloway.
A huge.
Gaining revenge, wanting revenge here. And I think, if memory serves, Holloway, very short price here.
It's going to be probably. This fight has potential to be the fight of the year. It's two of the most entertaining fighters on the entire roster. Every single fight, they have both guys just leave everything they have inside that octagon, and we're going to see plenty of blood at the weekend. Anyway, I can tell you that much.
Ooh. And but 1.51 there for the value hunters. The value definitely is on Dustin at what you can get 2.8 Unibet, 2.75 Bet365. Would you look to sort of going? I suppose it is the upset, isn't it? If Dustin wins, but is it the upset?
Well, if we're, it's not. It will be an upset for people back in Holloway, but in terms of skill wise, there's not that much that does separate the two. Yeah. I think Holloway has a striking advantage all day long, but if we take a look at the first fight, which I'm not sure you can actually compare because it was so many years ago. 2012, Max Holloway was fresh. It was his debut fight in the UFC. So to compare his takedown defense to now would be a bit silly because at the time he didn't even have a striking coach. I think at the time Max was training with two people back in 2012. So it's hard to take anything from the first fight and implement that in your betting strategy coming into this weekend. One thing I do expect is Holloway to look fresher, healthier, stronger. Okay. He's going up a weight division, so he doesn't have the hard weight cut that comes along with fighting in a division where you are the bigger man. He's going to come into the lightweight division and still have size. That's how big he was for the featherweight division. Yeah. So if Max keeps this fight standing, it's going to be his to lose, and he will take a second title, and he will be the second person to hold championships in both the featherweight and the lightweight division, following in Conor McGregor's footsteps, who achieved that accomplishment 2 years ago. Yeah.
So you would say then 1.51, because obviously you give us a punching parlay each week, and you're what are you at 6-0, 7-0?
6-0 now, 6 weeks.
6-0.
We can't say 6 weeks straight because there was a break last week, but yeah. The previous 6 events, we have cashed the punching parlay on every single one of them. So basically, since my odds market debut, I've gone undefeated in the parlays. I'm 6-0, so hopefully we can land the 7th.
Land the 7th, and is Max,
which has nothing to do with the main event, by the way. I'm focusing on the co-main event, which is also a title fight, which is also another interesting matchup. But once again, it's going to be the dominant striker I feel is going to come out victorious in this spot, and that would be Israel Adesanya, the undefeated middleweight who was not even been in the UFC barely a year, and he is just tearing through everybody that steps in his path.
Yeah.
There's going to be I think it's a 9-inch or an 8-inch reach advantage for Israel Adesanya versus Calvin, and then Israel I think is 6'4", and Calvin is 5'9". So Calvin has the power of a middleweight, but he does not have the size. And whilst I was looking at the fight tape, I was trying to find someone with a similar body style to Israel that Calvin has faced. And the only person I could really look at and compare to Israel would be a guy called Neil Magny. And by no means is Neil Magny one of the best in the world. He is a good fighter, but Calvin lost this fight to Neil Magny. It was back in 2015, but he wasn't dealing with the reach disadvantage very well. And if I compare Neil Magny's striking to Israel Adesanya's, it's two different leagues. So I feel like as long as Israel can avoid any sort of takedown or wrestling that's implemented by Calvin, he's going to win this. He's going to win this fight, most likely by decision, I think. And that's why I added it to this week's Punching Parlay. It's actually the first time I've added one of the main events to the Punching Parlay. So yeah, hopefully it can pull through and we can do 7 weeks and go 7-0.
What would you say is though the fight of the night? Would you? It's
Max Holloway, Dustin Poirier.
Yeah. And
one.
Oh, and what about do you predict any knockouts? Are we going to get any? Yeah, who's going to lose by knockout?
You see, Israel versus Calvin. I think if there was any chance of a knockout, it would probably be Calvin that gets the knockout. I don't think anybody's knocked Calvin out. If my memory holds correct, nobody has knocked Calvin out. I'm not even sure if he's ever been knocked down, let alone knocked out. And Israel is not really known as a power puncher. So I think I'd probably cancel that one out for any chance of a knockout. I think Israel's defense and his reach will just be too much for Calvin to get inside and land that power punch. Knockout wise, if I look at the whole card, maybe on the Dogs in the Odds article, I mentioned a fight between Alan Jouban and a guy called Dwight Grant. Alan Jouban, I think that he hasn't been in a fight where he hasn't been wobbled and the stars are floating around his head. I think every fight someone manages to wobble him every single time. Dwight Grant being such a young, athletic fighter with, I think he's got 7 or 8 TKOs on his record. I feel like if Alan lets the ball slip in this one and that chin gets tested, I'm not sure he can fight through this one. So I think Dwight Grant probably has a real good chance of knocking out Alan Jouban, which is, I think that fight will be, that would be just before the co-main event, or 2 before the main event anyway. So. And
obviously your Dogs and Odds article, which dogs or the underdogs do have value headed into Saturday?
One of the best value on this card is Ovince St. Preux versus Nikita Krylov. It's a rematch. They've already had this fight. Nikita got submitted within the first round with a very rare submission called the Von Flue choke. Not many people are able to land it. it's a choke which uses the shoulder to make the opponent lose their breath and get choked out. So watching that first fight, I feel like we could see basically an instant replay of the first fight. Nikita hasn't done much in terms of UFC success since. He did go on a small win streak, but he hasn't beat anybody that is, too notable or even on Vince's level. He won a bunch of fights outside of the UFC in another organization, and he then was re-signed by the UFC. And when he made his return, which I think was 2018, he lost to a guy called Jan Blachowicz. So I think this holds a lot of value with, I'm not sure what the odds were on Vince now. It's on the Dogs in the Odds article. I think he might be evens or just above evens. Let me just double check that for you.
Well, what I'll do is, as well as I'll bring up, so for our viewers, if they want to check out both the Punching Parlay article, so I'm going to just upload that now for you guys. There we go. That's the Punching Parlay one as well, if you want to write it down. And I'll get at the other article as well. What are your what is the Punching Parlay for those unable to open the article, or what are you going for? Hopefully making it 7-0. What are your tips?
Yeah. So I'm going to take, as we were speaking about Israel Adesanya before, he will be the main odds winner in the parlay anyway. Israel Adesanya at 1.59, 59 over 100 for the fractional bettors, and then to round that off to just under evens. I think this is one of the only weeks where I haven't managed to get it on evens or above. It's on 1.91 the parlay as a whole. And the second leg of the parlay is a guy called Montel Jackson. He's an elite wrestler, and I think he's gonna. I think he'll ragdoll his opponent, Andre Supantav, for the entire 3 5-minute rounds. It should be a comfortable win. He's the biggest favorite on the card, which is a slight surprise for him to be the biggest favorite, because he is still quite green in terms of experience and UFC experience, but his wrestling is so elite that I can't see Andre being able to defend that. So it should be an easy win for Montel there. So yeah, Montel Jackson and Israel Adesanya, both combined, we get 1.91, 10 over 11 fractional. And I'll be staking just one unit, £100 or $100, €100, whatever currency you're on, and you'll make a profit of £90 back, or dollars, whatever. And the bankroll, the current bank on the Punching Parlay is £705 or 7 units. So even with a loss, as long as we continue to play smart, and as you were talking about with Alex previously, just make sure you can always afford what you're betting. Don't be stupid. Don't look at the Punching Parlay and say, "Oh, DaveBets is on a 6-0 streak. I'm going to put, £2,000 or $2,000 on this and expect it to come through." Because
money, my house.
There's one thing with the fighting game that you have to be so cautious about is it's a fight, and the best fighter in the world can get flash knocked out at any point. So you have to be very careful when betting.
Yes, you do. All right. And just also as well, because you said put 100 or something, we our currency here in Costa Rica is called colones, and 100 colones is 17 cents. So I may put a little bit more than the 100 of my local currency, but I surely will be putting something I will be putting a little something on your punching parlay at the very least. All right, DaveBets, absolute pleasure. Sunday, he'll be doing recap over at Odds Market, an article. Please look out for that, recapping the events there. UFC 236. Tuesday comes in the odd dogs and their odds. And then Thursday, we get main event, co-event, everything else. So lots of UFC information and tips for you over at Odds Market. All right, Dave, best of luck. I'm sure I'll chat in with you on Telegram on Saturday when the fight is happening. But best of luck and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Natalie, and everybody back in the Punching Parlay. I hope we can cash again for the 7th time.
Yeah. All right, take care. Bye-bye.